Okay, ladies. Today I'm going to talk about hypothyroidism, just so we have an idea. I see a lot of it in women, and I'm just going to give you some ideas of, what it's about, what to test for if you do go to a doctor, and what they're going to test for, and what some of the signs and symptoms are, and some things we can do about it, because it's pretty common. It's way more common in women than men. I had it. I ended up having Hashimoto's and I had it. And my doctor, they missed it for years. Okay. Until I met up with a functional medicine doctor and he nailed it right away. But I struggled for years with it. So, what is hypothyroidism? It's basically when your thyroid is not producing enough thyroid hormone. And what's it lead to? It leads to things like this, like weight gain, fatigue, high cholesterol. It can even lead to anxiety and depression and brain fog, things like that. So it's pretty common, more common in women than men, and usually hits people in about middle age, okay? Roughly. And what they're going to be looking for are this TSH, it's called thyroid stimulating hormone. So we're going to go through some things. So what are the some of the signs of hypothyroidism? We go weight gain, that's a big one. They will not be able to lose weight because their thyroid has slowed down. Okay, so they're not metabolizing things very well. They'll lose hair. This is a big one. Now, men, we don't notice it as much, but in women, uh, you tend to see like male pattern baldness in women. So we look for that. Sexual dysfunction, uh, probably not going to want to be intimate. Um, Constipation because everything's slowed down. Women will have irregular periods. They may not be able to get pregnant. Another a tattletale sign is they'll be tired, but they'll also be cold. Their hands and feet will always be cold, no matter what. It could be 90 degrees outside and not cold inside, but they will still be cold. These are your people that go outside with a sweater on in the summertime. I don't know what it is. They just cannot get their body temperature up. They'll have dry skin. Like I said, they'll have infertility issues, depression and mood changes, and muscle weakness and cramps. So thyroid can cause a lot of things. And if you run off to your primary care doctor, just make sure they check it. And I'll show you some of the labs that we want to look at for that because it can cause a lot of problems. So when we look at the labs for thyroid, this is the one I run, and you're looking at T3. This is the one that's active, and this is the one that's free. This is the one that we need. Here's T4. We're looking at T4, but here's TSH. Here's what they always look at. And this is going to be fairly normal in most people. If it starts to go, I would say above 5, then we're looking at hypothyroidism. So we don't want it above 5. At one point in time, mine was 19, and they couldn't believe it when they finally checked it. They didn't even know how I was functioning. Um, but here's what you really want to look for in thyroid. If you go and get a thyroid panel, this is called a full thyroid panel. You want to look for the TPO antibodies, these, and you want to look for the thyroid globulin antibodies, these. These are going to show up way before the TSH gets off, and these are going to be like your Hashimoto's. Okay, so if you have this, it's going to be Hashimoto's, and this is what I had. This will be Hashi, and it causes the same thing. Um, in people, you're going to be tired, weight gain, brain fog, your joints are going to hurt, things like that. And then when we look at genetics, so does everybody understand? You could take a screenshot of this, but this is a full thyroid panel. And when you usually go, they're only looking at the TSH. And this is, I would say this gets missed a lot because they're not looking at the antibodies if they're not looking at anything else. So if you do go to the doctor, ask for a full thyroid panel. It would be worth your while to ask that because they missed it on me for years. And when we finally got it, it revealed some stuff that explained a lot at that point. Here's the genetics we look at for thyroid. We're looking at these two genes right here. And we keep going back to iodine and selenium. So this person has a problem with iodine and selenium. Those are the two common denominators here. So if it's yellow or red, that means they could have hypothyroidism. So if this person, I ran a genetic test on them, I would say, let's get your thyroid checked. And if their thyroid comes back abnormal, I'd say, okay, well, look, it's genetic. Then we could say it was genetic, and we would be fine with that. So if you know anybody in your family who has thyroid issues, then you might have yourself tested. And again, get that full thyroid panel. And then these are the genes for thyroid, and it goes back to selenium and iodine issues. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. So Here's the stats on hypothyroidism. In 2019, 11% of the US population had it. Number of Americans affected, 39 million. That's a lot of people. Impacted Americans, over 30 million. And then women versus men. This is going to be 5 to 9 times more likely in women as opposed to men. So it really affects women a lot more. And so, and I see a lot of women, and one of their main concerns is weight gain. And if they have a thyroid issue, a hypothyroid issue, or Hashimoto's, they will struggle. It will be very hard for them to lose weight. Okay. And so we'll always try to look at their thyroid. And then we go here. These are some foods that are good for hypothyroidism. And what you're looking for is an iodine sources. See, iodine, it's in cheese, it's in milk, it's in seaweed. Brazil nuts, you only need a couple of those. Tuna, selenium. Shrimp, selenium. Beef, selenium. Turkey, selenium. Chicken, as food, selenium. Ham, selenium. So as you can see, brown rice, selenium, we're looking at a lot of iodine and selenium. So if you just ate two Brazil nuts a day, you're probably okay. If you eat beef and turkey and things like that, or chicken, you're probably going to be okay. But for those people who don't eat a lot of meat or protein, they might struggle with getting selenium. So you could eat two Brazil nuts, or you could just supplement with it. And I'll show you how to supplement with it. But one of the big things for hypothyroidism I wanted to share with you was gluten sensitivity contributes to hypothyroidism. So, and I didn't understand this, but I had Hashimoto's, which is hypothyroidism, and I was very sensitive to gluten, but I did not know it. So that is one thing we look at too. We can look at food. We can see how sensitive they are to gluten. Most everyone I run that has a thyroid problem, hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, I would say 99% of them are sensitive to gluten. Not allergic, but they are sensitive to gluten. So people with Hashimoto's disease may benefit from a gluten-free diet. And most doctors never talk about this. So I didn't even know anything about this when I came down with Hashimoto's. I had no idea that this was going on. And it really affected my nervous system. Again, I go back to it made me very moody, made me very irritable, made me anxious, and gave me brain fog. And I had trouble sleeping. So that was my nervous system. And it wasn't until we got my thyroid situation figured out, and it never was the psychotropic meds I was on. So I see a lot of people who are on medication, whether it's a few medications or a lot of medication, that probably, I don't want to say don't need to be on the medication, but it's probably because they got a thyroid issue, they're sensitive to some food or something other than what they think is causing it. Because um, I was taking Adderall, and Adderall was making me even moodier at times, and it was really blowing up in my face. And I was trying to regulate my mood, but it was really hard to when I didn't know what was causing it. And for me, gluten sensitivity was huge for my hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. Um, does anybody have concerns about hypothyroidism? Any questions? So let's go back here. When you get your labs tested, just make sure we're getting all these checked. And if I had to say, they're always going to check this TSH, and they're going to say normals between roughly 1 and 5. Okay. But what I would tell you is get these thyroid antibodies checked, because this means you have an autoimmune disease and your body's medication and it wasn't helping. Well, that's why it wasn't helping, because nobody told me about the gluten sensitivity and nobody told me about the supplements. I mean, so when we look at the supplements, I'll show you one of the supplements we recommend for people with thyroid problems. But yeah, nobody told me this. And I struggled for years when I really didn't have to. So when I people see people with thyroid issues, it's sad because you can really prevent it if you do it right, but you got to know what you're doing. So yeah, let's see here. Can you have hypothyroidism and not have weight gain issues? Yes, you can. You can have hypothyroidism and not weight gain issues. Is there a relationship between PCOS and insulin resistance? Oh, yes. Huge relationship between PCOS and insulin resistance. So that's why we talk about fasting. We talked about that before. But yeah, and you don't want to snack. And I'll probably go into insulin. I'll talk a lot about insulin next week and the blood test for it. I'll make a note of that. But yeah, PCOS is basically insulin resistance, and you're not managing it very well. So those people should not be snacking. Um, one of the one of the supplements I recommend for thyroid issues is this right here. and it has a lot of B vitamins in it. It has iodine in it as kelp. We also have magnesium, zinc, selenium, another one, molybdenum, L-tyrosine. This is big for the thyroid right here. So we're giving the thyroid everything it needs. So when I say advanced thyroid support, it's not just one thing. And when you guys buy supplements, here's what you want to look for. When you see this here with all these ingredients, you don't want to blend. You do not want to blend. The good supplements are going to tell you exactly what is in there. See how all these, if this was a bad supplement, uh, it would say blend and it would just kind of list these, but it would never say how much was in it. Okay. So it would just say it's a blend of thyroid stuff, but it would not tell you, it would just say vitamin B12. It wouldn't tell you it's methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin is the best kind because you want it methylated. Okay. So, and then he's telling you iodine as kelp, that's the best kind, and magnesium as magnesium oxide. See, they're being very specific on what they're telling you here. So you really want to know, and it's not just tyrosine, it's L-tyrosine. So you really want to know if you really get into good supplements, they're going to break it down like this. They're going to tell you exactly what's in it, and then they're going to give you the amount per serving and what's in it right here. So this is the one I recommend for people who have thyroid issues. I try this first before medication, or we try this if they're trying to come off medication and come down. Does that make sense? So anyway, but yeah, thyroid issues are probably one of the biggest issues we have in America. Um, and again, here are your signs and symptoms. Weight gain. You're not going to have all of these. You're going to have a few of these, probably at least three or four of these. It'll be weight gain, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, fatigue and cold. That's a big one. Irregular periods for those who are having periods, constipation because everything slows down, dry skin, infertility, depression and mood changes, and muscle weakness and cramps. So they're going to be tired. They're not going to be able to do the things. And so, again, here is the panel, the thyroid panel, and here is the genetics. So what I like to do is have both and then just compare. Like if I'm working with somebody who has thyroid issues, we're not only looking at their genetics, but every year we're going back and we're looking at their thyroid labs too. And we're looking at other things as well. But today I'm just trying to focus on thyroid. And then we make sure that, they're eating the right things. So this is a lot of things you would eat that have selenium and iodine in it. If you're eating these things, you're probably okay. And again, if you do have hypothyroidism and you want to know if you have Hashimoto's, you have to look at those antibodies. And then I would tell you the best advice I'd give you is watch out for the gluten because that's what gets a lot of people. They don't realize they're sensitive to gluten until after they get off of it. And that's how I was. And then again, this is the supplement I'd recommend. And just make sure it has, if you're buying stuff, just make sure it has it broken down per line item and how much it is. If it doesn't, it just says like it's like I said, like it's a blend, it's probably not a good product, guys. Okay. So you want to know that. And these products that we have here have been third party tested, and this is very specific for thyroid health. It's going to help out with tired, sluggishness feelings, restrictive, and unbalanced diets. So this is really going to help speed up their metabolism and get them feeling better and get that T3 and T4 up. Again, T3 is the main one. That's the one that every cell uses in the body is T3. So you really want a lot of T3. And the medication they give you for thyroid is T4. So you have to be able to convert it to T3. And some people may not be able to do that. That's why the medications sometimes don't work. Anyway, and I've noticed people now on like fitness things, everybody wants their thyroid to be low because if it's low, they're going to lose weight. They're going to have a lot of energy. So most of the people that I work with, we kind of want to keep their thyroid, their TSH, between 1 and 2 on that low side. Now, most labs will let it go to 5, but we try to keep it down here. I like they say 1 to 5, but I like to keep the thyroid, the TSH between 1 and 2. So this person's normal, they're at 1.6. But if they were at 5, most doctors are probably not going to have a problem with that. But I would say that's the beginning of the hypothyroidism. They're going to feel tired and sluggish, weight gain, and stuff like that. So, anyway, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, and yeah, the PCOS is an insulin resistance thing. And we'll talk about maybe insulin. I'll make a note to talk about insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome and stuff next week so we can go over that. But hopefully today you learned something about the thyroid. Just know that these are your signs and symptoms, and know that these are the labs. Get a full thyroid panel, not just this one. I'm telling you, they're only going to run this one. This is not the whole picture. You've got to get them all so we can have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. And if anybody has